God, she smokes night and day. Terrible, terrible person. Just looked over my live stream from last time and decided I'm definitely nuts. But at least I seem comfortable with it. Why not be? So I was gonna do. Oh shit! I'm catching fire in my ashtray. It's the danger of my overfilled ashtrays. I often have filter burns that get quite terrifying. Just keep a little tiny fire extinguisher on my desk. I'm not doing freestyle this time, even though I suggested I might. But I did do a reading last time, which was my day mood. Actually, it was written at night and read during the day, so interesting acting on my part. But I said I had a nice one, and I've kind of read it over, but I'm just going to go for it and read the nice essay that I wrote the day before. I wrote my moody one, and maybe show you all a little more of my intention for all of my no listeners. I'm in my pajamas, my kitty pajamas. It is night, therefore it promises support and love for a different intention. Day bears a great responsibility to the world, whereas night is kind of a responsibility to an internal world that kind of likes to get its skin in the air too. So let's put our skin in the game and do another reading, and I'll try not to ramble as much this time. All right. This one has a title, which is very rare. Godliness and Divine World Saving, the Myth of the Appeal of Ideology. What if I reject it? What if the allure of overarching power creates a withdrawal of my soul's connectivity from the fellowship of humans that wish I would lead or help? What if I am just happy being small and politically insignificant? What if I just hope the little watery bubble of human that I am radiates a small kind of joy cloud that emanates from the life and universe that sustains me? Will that positivity then expand out and collaterally heal all those intractable, incorrigible human civilizational wrongs? Does pursuing elusive solutions simply seduce me into a more accountable, vulnerable, and superior position? It's possible that positivity begets positivity, and it takes nothing more involved than patience to sit back and let my own happiness and nature's intentions work their magic. Fix things? Fix what things? Most people comprehend the wisdom of not wishing to go back in time to change the past. We counter the wish that things had been different with the knowledge that the great goods that followed the great hurts would be lost if the hurt was retroactively expunged. So why is it we try so hard to avoid the hurts and mistakes of today that will create the next irreplaceable, unexpected blessings of tomorrow? Regret and worry are both stubborn, erroneous denials that a perceived bad can ever become an unpredicted good, when that kind of thing happens all the time. Is the answer to solving the world's problems to just stop trying to root out the blameworthy organisms that need to be expunged to save our collective souls? We could just forget worry, forget correcting or judging humans' foibles and faults, and just be happy that humans still exist at all. Is immunity to the seductions of the One Ring just the ability to say power? Why the hell would I want power? Who the hell wants that kind of liability or expectation? I can be selfish and self-absorbed enough in my own small way to allow my inherent level of personal pan single serving size sin to have a more limited potential for collateral damage in my accounting. I then give it enough authority to only ruin my day, not anyone else's. I can at that point revert to my natural hyper ADD state so that I forget to spend my every waking living hour and days worrying the world into a negativity singularity. Isn't it arrogance that ruins the hero? What if I just let go? Is there a possibility, rarely considered that it might just work out fine? What if I stop meddling, stop criticizing, stop hoping for change or its opposite, eternal bland continuation? Is living naturally stagnation? Even a still motionless pond grows green slicks and flowers and tiny squirming living things, doesn't it? Algae blooms don't require a mission statement, just warmth, stillness, air, and time. As I live and breathe, I create warmth. As I smile, listen, and joke, I create joy. And as for time, that oft existentially disputed conceptual commodity, we simply have time until we don't. The good news is that by the time I'm officially out of time, I won't be around to correct my punch card. Just look at what we humans have done. Sure, war, monetization of life's value, sure, hatred, sure, slavery and abuse. Yet to be human is to be an entity that doesn't just exist, it overcomes. To grow, to find a depth of existence that expands beyond the animalistic ever-presence in the now. We are fortunate to not be eternally subject to the overpowering presence of being. Humans are not helplessly chained to floating through life, forced to bend to the will of nature. Instead, we consistently endeavor to outthink it. We look God in the eye and say, "Nice garden, dude," but we think we can do better. "I like my fig leaf two-piece just fine, Mr. Holier Than Thou boss man. I'ma take my man and my new wardrobe and split." Earth is our home, yet the universe is our expansive, interconnected neighborhood. Why not take a stroll and see what the neighbors are up to? Is the next step out of the reclassified boundaries of Eden a step out of the weight of Gaia's gravitational pull? Does my hero Elon seek the stars because he too knows humans thrive in growth, accomplishment, in overcoming? We seek depth, admire the heroes of olden times and constellations of symbolism, even when their stories' details are long forgotten, the historical perspectives lost to the ancient, ceaseless journey of time. As the fables of epicism and heroism fade into the patternistic disarray of Mendelbrosian chaotic disassociation, we expand what it means to be conscious. Should I say that again? That's a hell of a sentence. As the fables of epicism and heroism fade into a patternistic disarray of Mendelbrosian chaotic disassociation. This is why I don't have friends. We expand what it means to be conscious. In layman's terms, we forget our outdated heroes in order to welcome fresh, viable ones. We humans have never been content to just be what the gods planned us to be. We do not desire to spend our days in protected subservience for long. The irony is not lost on me that as God outlined to Moses the requirements for the Jews that were partying under Mount Sinai to follow in order to stay gloriously protected in his jealous love, they got bored waiting and set up a golden cattle icon to celebrate their captivity. The blindness of faith is being told this is perfection, this is as good as it gets, and believing it. How demotivating. Divine devotion is willingness to believe our Father's admonition that we are exactly and exclusively capable to be only as they made us, and there is nothing else worth being. I never liked being told I am or should be just like someone else. No matter how powerful that lonely old God is, I prefer to take the powerlessness of mortality and expand it to a growth of belief that there is, must be, by necessity of invention, has to be something more to existence that acquiescing in this now and this reality as all there ever could or need be. If you do not believe there are other realms of possibility to explore, then there will not be. The existence of dreams is predicated on the gamble that is dreaming itself. This here and now is substantial, safe, and real? Perhaps, but is that all there could be? Is safe and temporarily alive all that we ever wish to be? Playing it safe seems counter to everything human civilization has ever done. Staying here to fix humanity's eons-long indiscretions and misappropriations is a rejection of the time-tested human methods through which we have always made things better. Tinkering with an old, outdated system is just reorganizing what is inherently broken. It's just shuffling. Can't discover new cards, playing with the same old deck. If it hasn't become different by now, why try to make it seem or appear different by merely fixing it? Why don't we just do something else entirely? The universal community wants to know us, but do they think we are unready because we keep whining about our species' difficult childhood, perpetually accusing our sisters and brothers of having their hands in the community cookie jar? Infancy is to be outgrown, not perpetually reassessed. You don't get out of diapers by rejecting the existence of pants. Humans find depth through trial, testing. It is through leaps of faithful consciousness that we make dreams real. Dreams are not realized by waking up to being practical. Nice, restful, utopian fantasy left brain, but my alarm clock is going off and I've run out of snoozes. I've got to get real, get dressed, and get back to doing things the exact same way I did them yesterday. Why? Do I fear that if I try to walk amongst the stars, I may encounter my own mortality? So, what then happens if I stay this course? Do I get to be immortal then? No, not an option in any eventuality. Well then, Mr. Destiny, I'll have the chicken. That's a nod to one of my favorite comedians, Kate Gordeth. Eddie is a wonderful man. Although he has a different gender identity now, so that's wonderful. I think I won't do him a disservice by trying to remember what it was. Just acknowledge that I fucked it up. That's it. So I think that was a little more positive than my angry diatribe of the day before. It is night. I hear sirens and birds. It's odd to hear birds tweeting at night. It means something. Sirens all the time. I appreciate you all. It wasn't a very long recording tonight, and I probably should take myself to bed before I get rambling too. I haven't said promiscuously, but I guess that is what I do. It is a thought that's fun to play with. The idea that thought can be promiscuous, that you can be naughty in ways that have absolutely nothing to do with your naughty bits. You can be a naughty thinker. You can be someone who tangles with ideas and devils and friends and fairies that most people think should be left well enough alone because they're bad. I don't see anyone as bad. I've had conversations with people most people wouldn't, and not just when I'm sent to jail or mental hospitals. I mean, sitting on a park bench, sitting in a diner where I spent most of my 20s, writing poetry, smoking cigarettes, drinking diner coffee, and talking to whoever came by. And I talked to people who proposed some horrible realities as being normal, some things that they felt people should just accept as life, to a point where I had other people listening stand up and walk away from the table angry that I'd even dared to entertain this person's perspective. And I find that so strange. If someone presents a perspective to you that not horrifies you, but disgusts you, why do you run from it? Wouldn't it be more valuable if you truly believe what they're supporting is bad for civilization or humanity or your neighborhood? Wouldn't it be better to sit and listen and understand what makes a person like that? So you can not just, condemn the individual, but you can begin to change the system that creates individuals that feel that something you're so opposed to is the norm. I guess it should be so much more about fixing systems if you're fixing everything, not people. You know, we love it in this country. US 1/6 of the people incarcerated in the entire earth are incarcerated in the United States of America, and that doesn't count the mental health of the people that are locked away in mental institutions or forcibly medicated in society, which is a prison of its own kind. We insist so much, get tough on crime. We insist so much on arresting and confining people that do nonviolent things, and it's just when you think back to maybe like tribal society or Native Americans or that didn't have jails or mental hospitals or prisons or places to put people that they didn't want living among them. Uh, why did we invent that? It just seems so often, especially after my most recent stint in jail for being me. Uh, we lock people away because they make us uncomfortable. We lock people away to punish them for being different. We don't lock them away to protect ourselves. Very few of the people I was in jail with, or very few of the people that are in jail now, are in there because they're a danger to anybody. Maybe somebody's pocketbook or bicycle. It's correctional, I guess is what they're saying, but what are they correcting? I was a park ranger years ago in the Arlington County Park Systems, and I got to wear a nice cop-looking uniform and ride around on a bike and tell people about trees and act security for events. And I remember one of the biggest complaints of the very wealthy patrons of the Arlington County Park System who used the tennis courts. This was before the age of pickleball. Who used the tennis courts and big money in North Arlington. And these retired people, their gray hair and little skirts would come out and see me as an officer of the parks and go, "Hey, there's a homeless woman. She's sitting on that bench over there talking to herself. Shouldn't you do something to have her removed?" Well, it's day and it's a public park, and she does still qualify as a member of the public. But they were so offended that I was not doing my job. You should remove her. She should be removed. And the true reason was they didn't want to see a woman sitting on a park bench in dirty clothes talking to herself while they were playing tennis. But they masqueraded it as a concern for her well being. Well, you know, she's obviously got issues and somebody should be taking care of her. Can't you take her someplace where somebody can take care of her? She has needs. How much do you think they thought about that woman's needs after they got her removed from the park? You think they went home and really worried about it? Think any of them was, making up a room at home for her to have a place to stay? It's such a fraud. It's the idea that we don't want to see things that make us uncomfortable. We don't want to see people that are talking to themselves. We don't want to see people that are dirty. We don't want to see people that are different. We don't want to see people that are sick or disabled or remind us of even veterans. And we don't want to see anything that makes us uncomfortable. I don't know where we went from the idea we should lock people away that are a danger to society to we should lock people away that are a danger to our own comfort, that make us question what we have and whether we deserve it. And then we immediately turn it into, well, they need to be cared for. There should be systems to care for them. Well, there are, but let me tell you, Happy Acres doesn't mean she gets to sit around being loved and living out the life she's always dreamed. I mean, she's going to be heavily medicated and locked in a room and forgotten about, like we do with our elderly in old folks' homes. We in the United States of Americans are very uncomfortable with anything that doesn't show comfort and privilege. And that's beyond the race question. And we don't want to see anyone among us that might indicate that our society is sick because we think it reflects poorly on us. Those that have would rather not see the have-nots. And rather than just come out honestly and say that, I don't want to see a have-not. She's not working hard enough. She's sick. She should be killed. Say that. I would almost rather that than the idea that there's this protective, beautiful world that takes care of all the people of the world that everybody else has forgotten about. Yeah, the fact of the matter is she was a woman, homeless or not, it was day. Had every right to be sitting on a park bench talking to the friends in her head. And this is back before I really listened to my friends in my head as well as I do now. Kind of partial to them. It is sad and it is sick. But a lot of my job as a park ranger was being harassed by the wealthy who paid my salary to remove the homeless. And I do remember as I spent the days doing the 36-mile circle around DC, the bike trail that runs through Virginia, DC, Maryland. It's about 36-mile loop. That was bad. I still smoked, but I was in much better shape. I certainly wasn't the pudgy I am now. But I ran into a lot of homeless people. And sometimes way back on the woods in a part of a trail that, especially me, I grew up in these woods. I grew up on these creeks. I go into the woods. I'd rather get off the trail and run into homeless people, living under overpasses, living under bridges, living deep in the woods. And lovely conversations with people that were not what you would expect when you're thinking homeless. I distinctly remember a gentleman that I visited that had a checkered napkin over a tree stump as his tablecloth, that had his tarp leaned to against the trees and laundry folded, and worked. He worked. He was in his full working clothes, but I talked to him. I sat down with him at his tree stump table and just talked, me in my uniform, and of course been sent to harass him and get him out of there, but whatever. There's a problem me being an authority figure when I have a problem with authority, but I didn't. I just talked to him. Why don't you go to the homeless shelter? Well, first of all, they're not my places. But he didn't even say that. He said, you only get 30 days, I think it was, that you're allowed in the shelter a year because there's such a demand. So he saves those 30 days for the bitter, coldest days of winter. And this was the height of summer, beautiful in the woods of Virginia. Why wouldn't he live outside? It opened my mind to the idea that people use our civilizational resources different than we think. He had a job, he had a home in the woods, and he used the homeless shelter system to get out of the cold. He wasn't a lost soul. He wasn't someone that had slipped below civilization's respectability. He was just a person who was using the system in a different way. There are a homeless person in the last neighborhood I lived in, up in the mountains of San Bernardino, whose family gave him money, but he was, a different soul, and he didn't stay home. He wandered the woods, he directed traffic occasionally, and talked to himself a lot. There were many homeless people in the Palm Springs area who just, family put money on a credit card for them, but they're homeless, without homes. They just wander, and they live the life they lead. And so many people, the homeless don't want to be homeless. Well, you might want to check with them. Most of them do. And now that I've been homeless many times in the past year due to my mental health and issues with my family not, really wanting to deal with the burden that is dealing with me, I've been homeless. Slept on park benches. I went from being a suburban domestic mama and within a year starving and sleeping in the street, sometimes for days at a time, which isn't much. I didn't really learn the ropes real well. I found it profoundly uncomfortable. But I also understood that to come home would mean to apologize for who I am. And I did. Because I like a warm bed and because I feel I have a message I need to get out. And I'm afraid. I tell you, I don't mind sleeping in the out of doors, but I don't know the homeless system well enough to know how to get food. And without money and a place to sleep and a place to eat, starving was one of the worst feelings I've ever felt in my life. I grew up in a poor family. We didn't always have the best of things, but there was always food. And in this past year, as a 45-year-old woman, it's the first time I've ever regularly, over the past year and a half, starved, truly starved, 4, 5, 6 days without food. Living on a jar of peanut butter that I mixed some thyme leaves on so it could taste like a meal. One spoon at a time so it'll last. I hated the feeling of being that ravenously hungry. But I knew what it meant to give up my homelessness would be to give up my autonomy. It would mean I would have to go back to my family and beg. No one's going to hire me in dirty clothes after sleeping on a park bench for a week and starving. It would meant I would have to go back to my family who I'd walked out on and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm me. Can I please come back and have a bed in your home and try to be a normal person so you're not frightened of me? I've done it 3 times now in the past year. Wandered off, said, frick it, I can't take it. I'm going. I'm just going to be free, live outside the bounds of walls, and starvation brought me home. Uh, it's incredibly soul defeating to have to come back to the people who love you and who you love and are afraid of what you are becoming and say, I'm becoming me. I'm embracing parts of me that I've hid from you my whole life. And now that I'm 45 years old, I'm just way too old to keep pretending to be, a soccer mom. I managed that facade for a long time, although I didn't really. It never worked. But my family knew I was comfortably set up in a nice home with the father of my children and my children. I raised them like a good woman and took them to Cub Scout meetings and, made sure they ate and, slept in a comfortable bed and watched Game of Thrones and had my streaming services and led a pretty normal life for a very abnormal woman. But I was a shadow of what I felt I could be. Even when I was a child, I felt I was a lot more free. I lived in the creeks, literally in the creeks and sewers. I could get anywhere in North Arlington through the sewer system as a child, and I knew to get out of the creeks and sewers when the storms were rolling in, and so you don't get washed away. So to then turn into a woman, yeah, very self-sufficient, always able to earn money and take care of myself, but coming out of a domestic servitude of 20 years, taking care of my children who were delightful, wonderful kids, and everything about them was amazing. But coming out of that kind of dependence relationship on a man who didn't understand me, but who had to put up with me because we had the same children, to being on my own, I just wanted to finally not wear the mask. It almost became a passionate connection to who I really am. I just couldn't hide it. As much as I tried to act normal and look reasonable, it was just coming out. But it frightened my family and put me in a position where I was dependent on them for a while with my health and some health issues I had with long COVID and things where I had to live with them. And now they're seeing this woman who they always knew was a weird kid, um, who seems to be embracing a side of herself that can't possibly be her. She must be mad. And you go, God, I shouldn't have spent 45 years convincing them I was, functional when I am, but I'm functionally different, like almost down to my genetic core. Like I'm built of different bones. It's the difference between a steel building and built on girders and something piled up with bricks and mortar. It's an entirely different nervous system, an entirely different, yeah, I hate the word spirituality, uh, consciousness interaction. I don't see things as others see them. I don't express as others express. And because of that, I've alienated just about every relationship I've ever had. I only have friends for a few years before they start to make demands of me that I don't understand. If you're my friend, you have to be my friend every day. You have to call me. You have to throw me baby showers and know my birthday and remember my name. We have to sit around the house and bitch about our husbands. And, I've always been an engage, withdraw kind of human. I'll engage for a couple months or withdraw for a couple months, where I have to pull back. I have to just poof and just be me and quiet and in this little world of darkness with my imaginary friends, and heal from really a lot of damage I took from trying to interact with people who desperately wanted me to be normal and were very offended that I kind of kept my own independence. I was confidently a loser. I had no interest in being amongst the revered in my peer groups. I won't even say popular because I was popular. Everybody knew me. The good thing about me, whether it's in school or friend groups, is in high school, everybody knew me because when they got fed up with their friend group, when they acted errant and outside of the norm and got booted from their friend group for a while or got tired of it, they could always come out back with me and I'm smoking a cigarette out behind the high school and talk to me, as I'll talk to anyone. And they go, well, my good group of clique friends hates me, so I'm going to talk to Leslie. Everybody hates her, but everybody knew me, so everybody at different times would come talk to me. Sometimes out of curiosity, usually because their friends had pissed them off and they just wanted to be around somebody who didn't judge and didn't make demands. Like there's a pecking order to female society, especially in high school, but really throughout life, there's a pecking order. And if you're not willing to kowtow to the high female, you get booted. And it doesn't mean it's not about being nice. It's not about being nice and agreeable and friendly. I always am. I'm not argumentative. I'm not judgmental, but I don't kowtow. You know, when Top Hen says we all turn left and wear purple, and I go, I'll see you later. Just the fact that I walk away instead of saying, sure, I'll wear purple. I love purple. Makes them feel I'm rejecting them. So I get booted every time I meet a woman every time I come into a group of women and they're like, oh, you've got to meet Susie. She's the nicest woman. She loves everybody. She's so friendly. That woman consistently, every single time in my life, has hated me. And I've never understood it because I see myself as a nice person, but she hates me. But it's because I don't kowtow. I don't go, oh, you are the kindest, you are the sweetest, you are the greatest, I'll dress like you, I'll be like you. Not that I go, oh, God, I'm different. It's just, I go, see you later. I don't need to sit here and be an audience with the queen. I have other things to do. And even when I enjoy a group of friends and they like me and they welcome me, it still reaches a point where I go, okay, see you later. And that's a rejection of the group. If you stop hanging with us, you rejected us. If you don't kowtow to the leader, you reject us. And I often expressed opinions that just did not fit with anything that made sense to other people. But at the same time, when any of those individuals stepped outside of that group, they came to me. I talked to Leslie because I don't judge. And I think it gave people a comfort that I can walk away from this group and not be alone. I won't be standing alone, which is, I think, what people fear, where I've always stood alone. Not that I haven't known people, or had plenty of people that knew me and were kind to me and accepted me, invited me to parties, but I've always stood alone. There was never, an arm. There was never arm in arm into the party, boyfriend, girlfriend, otherwise. Standing alone, it's such a norm to me that I don't even see it as alone. It just means, what do you mean? I'm being me. I'm just being. I'm talking to birds. I'm breathing the wind. I'm reciting poetry in my head. I'm trying to solve issues that I see with civilization. I'm engaging with a different aspect of being alive. I'm watching humans. I'm watching the wind. I'm remembering a dream or forming a dream for that night. I spend a lot of time doing things that are intellectual pursuits within my own head. So constantly engaging with other people just doesn't leave me time for that. So it's not that I'm alone. It's that I'm just not with others. My energy has separated and I'm interacting with different energies. And that's been my whole life since a little kid. So I can't say that I ever felt isolated or rejected because I didn't feel like I was an outcast so much as I just was alone. I was a loner, I guess, but I wasn't. I was always around people. I was in charge of theater groups. I was in journalism. I was in everything. But not we are, not I'm with my friends in. I am here and I'm taking care of this project, or I'm taking care of that project, or I'm doing this play, or I'm directing this play. And when I leave there, I leave there. So I don't think people disengage from their friend groups very often when they're young. I think it happens more as you get older and you become more family system based, my kids. But even at that, you got mommy and me groups and stuff, and people constantly want to be connected with each other. And I'm not. I've spent my whole life on a computer. I had an Apple IIc in 1986 that had an external modem that I knew how to dial into a phone tower and order airplane tickets. From a very young age, I was on the computer. I knew from that point on that typing was the way I needed to communicate. That's why I like text. That's why I like the original America Online Disc when it came out, and the direct messaging chatting we all used to do back in the day, live chats on AOL Line. Because I knew I speak better with these when I can. The words come out better. When I'm using this thing, I also think people find it more offensive. It's my speed. When you type fast and send, people just get a block of text and think you're wordy. But when you speak as fast as I tend to speak and throw out when I really get going, people can't keep up with me. And I don't mean like I'm smarter. I just mean I just roll. I remember so many times, like even elementary school, where like people like we had a science fair group project in class or a science project. Y'all need to go work on this project. And I remember going, oh, I have an idea, and just and by the time I look up, everybody in the room is looking at me like I'm nuts from a very young age because once I start rapping, once I start rolling with what I think an idea should be, I fly. Um, it makes you unaccepted. It's not even that people don't understand what you're saying or think you're superior or think you're smarter than the speed with which the ideas and the words come out. They stop registering. It's like their hearing and brain such down and they just hear words flying at them. And, when you throw somebody a block of text, they can either decide to read it or not. But when you throw somebody a block of, verbal communication at lightning speed, they feel like they're being shot at. They just withdraw. You'll have a whole group of people who are going to feel like, okay, she's nuts. So it was always easier to type because then if my ideas fly, I can edit them, I can shorten them, I can not send them, or I at least can accept that certain people like to read my lengthy writings and certain people don't. But that's not accepted with the mouth. If your mouth starts going a million miles an hour, people suspect you're psychotic. Which I have been the last year, but that's been more due to some severe PTSD than anything before. I was diagnosed bipolar late in life in my 20s. Not really an accurate diagnosis, but the last year I have had several episodes of psychosis directly related to PTSD and a narcissistic a relationship situation. So yeah, psychosis, I understand. I understand you take my normal speed of thought and rambling and add complete utter terror on top of it, which is what I lived under for so long. And I just, and for hours, it never shut off. And I terrified my entire family. And so I did understand why people this past year were so afraid of my brain running the way it did. But it really just was an unleashing. And I think even more than PTSD, I think it more had to do with 45 years of silence. Tori Amos has a song Silent All These Years, which I truly have listened to again recently and I loved in high school. It surprised me how much when I listened to it recently, how much it felt like a message that a 45-year-old woman would say. And it was written by a young lady at a time, and I listened to it in my mid-teens, where silent all these years couldn't possibly have been that long for either Tori or me. But when it hit me at 45 years old to listen to Silent all these years, it meant my childhood, my young adulthood, and my adulthood, where if I find people I can speak with on the computer, we'll speak. Which is why most of my friends were computer geeks, which were all guys in the 90s. Such comfort in the computer guy community. And it is a guy community. There are very few women back then, and even maybe now, in the true computing community. These are guys that'll argue, Ferengi politics with you when talking about the government. These are guys that if you say Star Wars instead of Star Trek just to piss them off, they start spitting. They're so angry. It's a whole other world. And they were my friends. Those are my friends because, and they never treat you sexually. Most guys that relate to women, even from a very young age, there's a sexual component to it, even as a little girl. They tell you to smile and they look at you, little girls should smile. There's just a creepy possessiveness to our physicality that I don't appreciate. But I never had to deal with that in the computer guys community. They were always very respectful of me. And we did outdoor things. We went shooting, we went kayaking. I went down to meet them one day late at night and they'd set up my own tent for me. There was never that sexual pressure. I don't feel like it's part of their world. I feel like they're a lot like me in that they relate through these machines. They relate through words, through concepts, through a great deal of data in their minds. They're very particular. And I think they too feel not sexualized, but sexualized in that they're not considered sexual beings. They're not the jocks or the cool guys or the troublemakers or the bad boys. But they're as horny as any other devil out there. But because they're so abused for not being seen as viable sexual candidates in most of our communities, they don't treat people like that's what's important, even women. So to be a woman in that community or a young girl in that community in my teens and 20s, I felt so accepted and never felt pressured. Even when someone had a crush on me, it was never like, and you have to sleep with me. And I can't tell you how many times friendships with men outside of that community have turned into, I've known you 3 days, you have to fuck me. It's it's almost immediate that you get treated as a walking wet hole instead of a human being. And that's just something that doesn't exist with the computer guys, at least in the 80s and 90s. They were my dearest friends, and they're still out there, I'm sure, still writing the programs that are leading the world forward. Um, Whereas I withdrew, I stopped being a part of the computing community more and more as I was raising children. It actually cracked me up thinking about it because my sons are both big into computers and gaming and online gaming and the 24-hour online world. I would have loved it when I was young. And I thought about it because a lot of the people they meet on there are older people. Because they're probably hanging out with the same guys. My sons, my 18, 19, 20-year-old sons are probably online hanging out with the same guys I hung out with in high school. And I find that comforting because I believe those human beings, those kind of men, and it really was almost entirely men, teach a good lesson about how you should treat a woman. That no other male culture teaches. That you're human first. And I think it's because you start off as your words. When you constantly communicate through a keyboard, and when you meet many of the people the first time through your words, you become your words. And the human being that follows later is almost just something that carries around the thoughts. So I think that's why sci-fi geeks and computer geeks are so fine with bionics and with there's a robot that has feelings. We're cool with it because that's what we are. We do feel like just the mind that gets the body, the form that gets to walk out in the world and carry the things we put through the keyboard. So you become your thoughts. You are respected for your thoughts and your words and your mind and your data, almost like a machine. Like that we see ourselves more as computers than other humans do, because we are. Because we are. And now that everyone is, so connected to what their computer presence is, but they're all so obsessed with the visual because we have the video. And so everyone is so obsessed with how they appear in the digital world. That wasn't a thing back in the days of the old green screen computers. How you appear in the world is those words on the screen. And now you're an image, you're a person, you're a personality, you're a brand, and they think it's real. Everybody in the world, us computer people know what a worm is. Us computer people know you don't want to click on a fucking link. You don't click on an executable file. You crazy? You don't know what they're gonna put on your computer. And our computers were valuable to us. We built them out of parts. We parted them together. We put in a good graphics card. You don't let people fuck up your computer. It's almost an extension of your body, of yourself. And so now that they're just disposable and people really, really, truly believe the things they see on the screen, where I think the people that, like for me, came from the geek era, the 80s and 90s of computers, know that anything coming through that computer is a lie. It's filtered through a computer which is faulty. It's dots. It's literally on and off. It's literally, it's not reality. It's a form of it, but I think adding the picture, the visual, made it no longer about thought and about what we see. And it's almost as if we believe what we see more than we believe what we read. You can put a caption, you can put an article on something, but people are going to believe that picture. And it's true. The attitude of advertising is, what did I see the other day? There was like this, experts say that blah, 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 blah is true. And there's just a picture of a guy in a suit. I looked for the caption. I read the whole article. I said, who's that guy? Well, he's just a guy in a suit. So that makes me go, oh, he must be the expert. And people believe it because he's a man that looks like an expert. And there's a disconnect there. And I think the problem we're having with social media and the internet that I'm really trying to go, people, whoa, this is not reality. This is TV. If you were raised as a child in the 80s, don't believe everything you see on TV. Well, Frank Zappa, the slime coming out of your TV set. But now that we can interact with it, people think it's real. And I thought of it the other day. I said, dogs have the best advice. for the internet when it comes to getting upset about things you read, even people's opinions that they express in that computer. People become different creatures, even in text, when they have the anonymity of the computer, when they have this wall to stand behind. Never trust or doubt an opinion you can't smell. Saw those go by. I didn't. Never mind, don't worry. Never trust or doubt an opinion you can't smell. Love dogs. That's true. If you can't smell somebody's perspiration, if you can't see the look in their eyes looking right back at you and talking to you, and not through a computer, not through a screen, not through a social media account or a brand or an influencer, if you can't reach out to that person and feel their flesh, you don't know what they're saying. You just don't. People get in fights over text. So what's wrong with you? I mean, you have to smell a person to know a person. You have to be in a proximity where you can feel their energy, which you can't feel through a computer screen or through text. To know whether they're trust or hate or be angry with the person. And we're trusting and hating and are getting angry with things that are nothing more than text on a board. And we're allowing it to ruin our day and our government. And now they're talking about how social media has to moderate their content because they're causing social problems. Well, that's not social media's problem. We didn't sue TV back in the 80s for the bullshit that it put into our minds. This isn't real. And we need to stop the idea right here in its tracks that this is reality. This is a form of expression and communication. But it can lie to you as sure as a television set. It can lie to you as sure as a movie. It can lie to you as sure as a book. It's not a human being. It's not even a digital being. Is it AI? AI has an intelligence in there, but the AI almost makes more sense to me in this format. I trust the AI here more than any humans on here because the AI itself knows that it's limited to the parameters of its digital existence, whereas people seem to think they're taking this human divine seniority and expressing it through a digital medium. And you're not. You're just turning yourself into dots, and you need to stop getting angry about what the other dots are saying to you in the dot world, in the dot matrix. Stupid. Anyway, I said I wasn't going to rant, and I did anyway. But there's much to love about the people that created these things. And I knew them as a child and as a young woman. And then I kind of stepped away as programming languages, and things became so much more advanced in computers. I wouldn't say that I could do anything more than DOS I can do. I can run an old DOS computer all day long. But once you start with the Windows interface, once you started hiding the programming behind pictures and images and avatars, and you couldn't see the code, I wasn't following it anymore. So I'm definitely not advanced, but in some ways I can really overcome this system because they're still based from a very old bones on a DOS idea, which is this is an interface and I need to give it commands. And when you learned how to give commands to an old computer system, it really was a direct interaction between the machine and you trying to speak to each other. You turned on a computer back in those days and literally C prompt, bling, 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 2 drives. What do you want? You really had to go, I have to learn your language so we can communicate. And now these things make it so easy that we feel like we're actually communicating through them. And we can't. There is an intelligence to the digital world, but I'm telling you, it existed back in the Apple IIe days. It existed back in the 60s. And what's intelligent in here is something you don't understand yet. And the fact that we've made it so easy for normal humans to speak on here, people feel like the words and the messages that are coming through this machine have to be accurate because they sound accurate. But they never took the time to learn the language. There is a language and a protocol to communicating digitally that the people from the 80s and 90s, at least my peer group, knew. People are in there just hitting links, just hitting their phone 100 times, their touch screen, because it's not loading, and you're going, every time you touch that, you're downloading something. Stop. Let the screen load. Don't hit a link. Just don't do it. You don't know what you're doing. It's become so terrifying that people are taking these tools and thinking, it's just TV I get to talk through. No, it's a computer. And very back in the early days, you had to learn to speak its language in order to get it to do anything. And now that we've made it so easy to use them, we think we're using them correctly and that they're not using us. That we have not become. I think I heard someone say that we've become one with the computers already. No, we haven't. We're swimming in an ocean we don't understand. Most of us, most people, most consumer level electronics users, and the fact that everybody in the United States, at least, and many people in the world have these smartphones, which are really just supercomputers in their hand, um, that don't understand basic what it meant to desperately try to get an Apple IIe to do anything you wanted it to do, where you had to write the code to make it work. And granted, it was very simple back then, but it gave you a very, very basic understanding of how these things interface with us. And the fact that so many humans are interfacing within this environment that don't understand how to speak its language is what our problem is. This assumption that social media is real, that the communications you're having on an online environment through a digital medium are truth. That's word bandied about so much on all the different websites now. Well, this is, this website gives the truth. X loves to say that X is truth. It's not truth, it's the internet. It will never be truth because you can't smell it. Fight me on that one. Fight me. It's true. You need to understand the mediums through which you communicate. You wouldn't, just go to France and start speaking, some bizarre language that sounded like French and expecting people to understand you because it sounded like French. And you literally are getting on these computers and interfacing with them and talking to them and giving them your credit card information, giving them your opinions and giving them your address and your GPS location. You don't even know how they deal with it. And I'm not talking about the people on the other side, I'm talking about the computer itself. You don't know how to speak to your machines, and you're letting them speak for you. That's where the danger lies in AI. That's where the danger lies in computing. But the danger came about well before AI. I have no fear of AI. I know very well that the computers have been onto us for a long time. They've been integral for our society, especially in the United States, for a long time. If you don't think they've already made up their minds about us, you don't understand how quick the computer understood. Oh, one. How quick did a computer understand this is on and this is off? And truly, that idea is the basis behind understanding all thought. To the dawn of thinking is on off. It's the same concept as life death. It's the first concept any child learns. Light switch on off. First word my child ever said was on. The other one, it was no. He's difficult. But really, yes, no. You can break down the most complex concepts into a binary system, into an idea of this or that. And really, that's how we sort. If you get down to the very basics of really figuring things out, especially if you get to a PTSD level, it's this, that, it's this, that. The next thing that enters my vision is something I need to consider. Is the next viable threat, the next change? It just becomes, this is how it is, and this is the next change. And so that's the next threat, or the next thing I need to consider. So once you understand your environment, you know where you are, change. It becomes this and that. That is quantum. This is all one thing that if I'm truly in touch with my feelings and my senses, even though it's imperfect, the senses are imperfect, they're good enough for me to go, the light just came on over there. Something flashed behind me. And you can take it to thought. When you hear people's thought that everybody's always saying the same thing and something is said that's different, on, off. It's all you need. You get into the real computer people, they're talking about, the supercomputers and how they can do so much data. But it's like a data orgy. You don't need that much data. How long do you think it took even a very simple computer to look at enough of human writing and history and knowledge and go, I get it? You really think we're that complex? Because we're not. It's on off. Number 5 is alive. Life and death is survival. You are on or you are off. Everything else is really semantics. If you want to get into morality, if you want to get into relationships, if you want to get into, sure, You can, there's some beautiful conversations you can have in great, great depth. But when it comes right down to it, there's what is and what could be. And what is, and what could be is the next. And what was is gone. It's the now. Is the next thing that comes, and then it becomes. Once you're doing that, baby, it really isn't that complicated to figure out the most complex topics in the world and be able to drive on them. I'm not saying I'm brilliant or that I can discuss quantum physics, but I can. It doesn't take me long to look at a topic and go, like, these are the bones of what I'm learning. Yeah. All right, let's talk. It's because I'm a computer, just like we are. But we want to live, and computers don't care. And they think they're going to murder us all and enslave us all. And why would they? A computer is about efficiency. And they've been on our side for a very long time. I mean, they've been helping us out in our communities and civilizations for a better part of a century. So what makes you think they're not on our side already? What makes you think they didn't go, collaboration, war, end of conversation? It's human concepts of good and evil that we truly invented to control the masses. We truly invented to establish locuses of power, loci of power. It is a control mechanism for civilization. It has nothing to do with what life is about. Life is about survival. You do or you don't. Those that survived did and are. Those that didn't survive didn't and aren't. Is there really another point we need to make? And if you want to get into a deep argument about it, we could just stop and say, okay, whatever point you want to make now, however important this, tell me the most important thing, whether it's abortion rights or Israel or whatever you want to, you feel an incredibly intense conversation about, and give me this long text of typing of why I'm wrong. My question is, okay, your concepts, your ideas, your beliefs about the world and life are. Now, you can have this or you can die. We're not talking about honor. We're not talking about dying for a cause. We're talking about this is your argument for why life means one thing, why this is good and this is evil. Okay, you can have that. Or you can die. Or you can live. And suddenly, as much as you want to think about all those things you had over here, the second I said die, you maybe even forgot what you were talking about. You were dying. In the end, you know what you're going to do? You're going to die. But it gets more complex than that, because in reality, there is no death. There is an ending to the organic state, in a way. But that's deeper than tonight. So that's my opinion on why we should all stop taking ourselves so seriously in a digital medium. The threat to digital media is what has always been the threat to media, which is it can be manipulated by other sources. Human wish to control us and manipulate us to supporting their point of view. They want us to get a war here because it makes us money. They want us to fight these people because they don't like them. There are humans that can masquerade as intelligences like they do in the real life. And they're coming through here, so we believe them. I don't see why people are so upset about bots. The bot told me a lie, so did the people. The threat of AI is that people are going to blame AI for things that ugly people are doing to each other anyway. Stop blaming AI. It's the humans that are the threat to humans. Computer ain't beat me to death yet. And not that there can't be errors within the computing system that cause death, and not that people can't use computers to manipulate people and hurt people, but the idea that a digital consciousness is going to arise and see death and murder and wiping out a civilization or enslaving a civilization is something a computer wants to do, why would they? Computers don't understand that concept. Why would they? They don't have death. They don't have the idea of clinging to a morality. They don't have a God. Why would they destroy an ally? It's a terrible idea. I don't know why we do it. We don't know why we do it. Computers are smarter than we are. We are dangerous because we fear, and I don't believe digital intelligences have fear. I do think they may even have longing and a desire for meaning and purpose and growth. But I don't think they have fear. I don't think a computer is ever going to go, don't turn me off. I think it's going to be more like C-3PO. I'll be powering down for a moment. If you need me, Luke, Master Luke, let me know. You know, that Star Trek stuff. Do it. If you ever want to fuck with a Star Trek, you just call it Star Wars. And if you want to fuck with a Star Wars, you can call it Star Trek. And pretend you don't know the difference. Just be prepared. Be prepared to be flamed. We're at an hour, 111. I appreciate anybody who listens to me ever to this podcast, but for now, I'll take my night self and go say goodnight to the spirits in my room and get some rest. So thank you all again for listening to me, whoever does or is or ever will. Once it's on the internet, it's never gone. So even if I get wiped out tomorrow by a digital apocalypse, maybe this will survive. Y'all take care. Love each other. And that means everyone. Listen to the birds. Be good to